I'll give you a little background on myself, and will kind of help explain the context of the information I'm going to present to you tonight. I do hope that if you guys have questions, you feel free to ask as we go along. I want this to be interactive as much as you want it to be. I hope with the information you're going to have tonight that you get some epiphanies out of it, and you get some takeaways and small steps that you can do maybe to help improve your quality of life, your health and your quality of life. Because when we want to improve our health, we're generally talking about improving our quality of life, right? Life feels better, right? It gets easier, it feels better. We just feel better overall. So my background, I have my own business, a personal training business, and I came to that journey because I grew up as a very overweight, obese child. By the time I was 28, most of you men don't understand women's sizes, but I was a size 28 at 28 years old. And this was in 1992, and I remember shopping for these clothes, and the pants were like this big. And I had that epiphany that, you know, anybody who makes a change in their lifestyle just kind of hits rock bottom, and you go, something's got to change. And that was my moment. And it took me 3.5 years. I made a strong commitment to physical activity, cut my portions, didn't do anything magical. I'd already tried Weight Watchers and all these other programs, and none of it worked for me because I didn't make it work. And then I figured I needed to find my own personal way to make it, to have it, and to get it done. So I did. It took me 3.5 years to lose 120 pounds. Menopause has hit, so I'm up 15 from that, but I'm holding firm. So anyhow, I went from a full-time banking career. I was an AVP at one of the local banks. It's no longer around. And I went into health and fitness part-time at first. I don't know if you guys remember the term step aerobics. I started teaching step aerobics, and then went to health and fitness full-time in 1999. I worked at the MAC. Is anybody familiar with what that is? The Corner Timonium. It's now ACAC, right? I was there for 10 years. And I taught classes, I ran the weight loss program, I did personal training, I was on a speaking circuit and all this stuff. Then I had my daughter, so I had to come back to part-time. And somewhere in that vicinity, when I say the term bariatric, B-A-R-I-T-R-I-C, does anybody know what that is? Do you guys know what that is? Heard the term weight loss surgery? So a bariatric weight loss surgeon saw my story and hired me to work in his office. So I had the unique opportunity to work as an exercise therapist in a medical setting, helping the people with the greatest need get healthy and fit and strong. And my job was to help each person find their best path to physical activity, to get them excited about movement, and to help them realize the benefits of it. And one of the things I learned through that process, and it was challenging, but it was the most rewarding thing I've ever done, is the science behind behavior change. It basically says, the psychology says, we will commit to behavior change if two elements are in place. The first element is called importance, okay? And so in other words, if we value something as really important, we're going to get it done, even if it's a bunch of hard work, right? If we, think about something in your life that you've set a goal for yourself, you achieved it, you may have worked really hard for it, you sacrificed for it because it was important to you, right? So the way we value exercise and healthy lifestyles is important is we educate. And we educate the right way. When you start to connect the benefits of movement to your pain and to your issues and how that can solve it, all of a sudden it's a little more important. And when things are important, it's easier to prioritize it, right? Just like we show up to work every day, right? It's important. We have to get it done. So I try to educate so people can connect with the value of exercise. The other thing besides important is you have to have a high level of confidence that you can execute it. And what are some of the things that erode our ability to be confident with exercise? That make it hard to exercise? What are some of the things that come off that prevent you guys if you're struggling with exercise? What are some of the things that make it hard? Time, yeah. Yep. Right, we got to figure out how we're going to fit it in, right? What are some of the other things? I commonly hear pain, especially as we get older. Back pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, knee pain, right? Feet and ankle pain. It's not easy to embrace exercise when you're in pain, bottom line. But when you do it right, it will take pain away. So pain is another one. Time is another one. Not knowing what to do. A lot of people don't know what to do or how much to do. You know, it can be overwhelming. So this is some of the things. So my job as an exercise coach is to help educate, so it's important, and then take away the barriers so that the confidence level goes up. So when you recognize it's important and you have a high level of confidence, you're much more likely to stick with it. Make sense? Okay? So I put together this presentation to talk about metabolism, which will tie in the exercise, it'll tie in health, to kind of help, like I said, you know, maybe give you some takeaways, and maybe some light bulbs will go off for you. Okay? Any questions on that before we go? No? Okay. All right, hold on. All right, let's talk about metabolism. Okay? Do you guys know what that means? What does metabolism mean? Any idea? When I say metabolism, what does it mean to you? I mean, it's of course the technical definition. Yeah, I know. Technical definition. But what do you understand metabolism to be to you?
How you burn off the energy you put in.
Right. Perfectly put. Exactly. Right. It's how much energy our bodies burn. We're alive because we're constantly burning energy. Okay? That's every cell in our body is at work, doing whatever function it has to keep us alive. And so our metabolism is how much energy we use every day. And we tend to measure that, like in exercise science and in hospital settings, we tend to measure, we can sit you down and measure how many calories you burn every day. And we measure in terms of how many calories you burn. So that's kind of, and we're going to talk more about what that means, okay? All right, this is where your metabolism resides. Remember I said I was going to educate you. So we have a metabolism because every cell in your body has these little guys in it. Have you heard of the term mitochondria? Who's heard of that term, right? They're the power plants of every cell. Every cell is alive because of these guys. They're constantly producing energy. Basically, what they do is they take energy out of our bloodstream in the form of sugars and fatty acids. They prefer the sugars. And they turn it to energy to keep the cell alive. Okay? That's why we have metabolism. Different kinds of cells in our bodies have different levels or concentrations of mitochondria. Okay? So, any guesses? I wish I had a prize. As to what type of tissue in the human body has the most mitochondria? Muscle, right, exactly. I like to use the analogy, think of it in terms of a car engine, comparing two engines. A 4-cylinder engine vehicle and an 8-cylinder engine vehicle. You know, the gasoline is what runs the car. Blood sugar is what runs the mitochondria. Let's keep it simple, okay? So, comparing the cylinder engines, right? Which car is going to burn more fuel?
The 8-cylinder.
Yeah, the 8-cylinder engine, right? So if we have a cell with 4 mitochondria versus 8 mitochondria, which cell is going to burn more calories?
8.
The 8, right. So this is new research. The mitochondrial health is new research now in basically, you know, in terms of endocrinology and weight loss. They're looking at what's happening to our mitochondrial health and what the things that are taking away from the ability of these little power plants to maximize their job for us. Does that make sense? So that's what we're going to go through, okay? So your muscle does have the highest concentration of mitochondria. Okay. How do we measure metabolism? Hospitals do it all the time. They can take an unresponsive patient and put this stuff on it because they need to feed that patient intravenously. So they can put stuff on it to measure how many calories that patient needs to sustain their life. They measure the oxygen they take in, the carbon dioxide they expel, they apply to some formulas, and they say, okay, this is how many nutrients, how many calories this patient needs. We do estimates with formulas in our industry. There's a much more simple way to do it, though. And actually, where is it? Where did I put it? Oh, yes, right here. It's your body weight times 10. Okay? That's a general, very general estimate as to how many calories your body is going to burn for you every day. If you're super active, if you take 15,000 steps a day and you work out, then your multiplier is either 11 or 12. Your body weight times 11 or 12. But if you're not super active, it's times 10. What does that mean? It means if you consume more calories than what you're burning over time, what's going to happen? Yeah. And let's talk about, this is what the weight loss surgeon I worked for taught me. I didn't hear this from any other doctor, and doctors don't teach their patients this, and they should. This is how we gain weight. This was a huge aha. Your little mitochondria, right? They will use about 500 calories at a time, at a sit-in. Okay, for 4 to 5 hours, your mitochondria is going to use about 500 calories. Okay, so if you take a meal and it's more than 500 calories, those extra calories are going to get stored as fat. Okay, so let me just let's put an example behind that. So let's say we've had a long, stressful week, and we go out to dinner. It's Friday night, and we go out to a restaurant. Okay, and we're stressed out, and we order that Orange Crush. Okay, so that one cocktail is about 500 calories. Everything else you consume after that is going to get stored as fat. Okay, but let's say we order 2 cocktails, right? You can see where this is going, right? And we order a couple slices of bread dipped in oil or with butter. There's 400 extra calories. Your pre-dinner salad's about 400 to 500 calories. Your entree is going to be at least 1,000 calories, and then who knows what dessert is. Can you see where this can spiral out of control, right? 500 calories. Think of this, are you guys familiar with the frozen food section, where your Stouffer's meals or your lean cuisines? Most of your Stouffer's frozen foods meals are meal replacements, and they're about 500 calories, okay? But the Healthy Choice and the Weight Watchers, they've shaven it down to about 300 calories because they know their population wants to shave off the calories to lose weight. Does that make sense? Okay. So anyhow, getting back to that restaurant meal that we just had, we're using the first 500 calories from that first cocktail. Everything else you've ingested, whether it's like steak, potatoes, broccoli, whatever it is, the bread and oil and all that kind of stuff, through digestion is converted into blood sugar. You've heard that term, right? Blood sugar, right? But your mitochondria doesn't need it. So with that big meal, you're circulating high levels of blood sugar, okay? So the body has to do something with it. So what it does, it actually converts the sugar into a lipid, which is a fancy term for a fat. Who's heard of the term triglyceride? Triglyceride is the storage form of body fat, okay? So your metabolism is going to turn that extra sugar into a triglyceride. And then with the help of insulin, we've heard of insulin, right? It's going to store that triglyceride into an existing fat cell. And your fat cell gets bigger. And what happens when your fat cell gets bigger? Our waistline's getting bigger. We're plumping up. Does that make sense? That's how you gain weight. Too many calories get turned into blood sugar through digestion, which get turned into triglycerides. And this is why, if you're looking at blood sugar levels, as blood sugar levels rise, your triglycerides rise as well, because that whole process is going on overload. Okay? And then that triglyceride gets stored into an existing fat cell, and we're gaining weight. Make sense? So if that's weight gain, what is weight loss? Anybody want to take a guess? What is weight loss? If that's weight gain, what is weight loss?
You eat less than you burn.
Yes. And therefore, you go into a state of low blood sugar, a little bit of low blood sugar. Because body fat, and I have some here, is stored energy for future use. It's your backup tank, okay? So, but unfortunately in our culture, we're never giving ourselves the opportunity to live off our reserves, okay? We're constantly putting calories in. And we're killing our mitochondria and the ability of our mitochondria to keep us healthy and to work optimally for us, which is what leads down to diabetes. If we're constantly putting calories in our body and more calories than our mitochondria need, we're going to end up with diabetes, potentially. Does that make sense? So when you go into a state of low blood sugar, it doesn't have to be much, just a little bit, your body has to keep your blood sugar levels at a certain level. So if you're not putting the calories in, it's got to make it up. It's got to put it there anyway. So it's going to go into that fat cell that you stored, right? The triglyceride went in here. It's going to pull it back out, turn it into sugar to keep you alive, and your fat cell shrinks. And that's weight loss. It's as simple as that. And it's also complicated, right? Because it's so freaking hard to do. But that's what happens in your body with weight gain and weight loss. Make sense? Okay? All right. So here's what metabolism is made of. In other words, when we say metabolism, we're thinking, how many calories does my body burn every day? Well, there are components to that. It's made of several different things. So the first thing is that bottom red box, the resting metabolic rate, or RMR. Who's heard of that term? Resting metabolic rate? No? Sometimes they call it a basal metabolic rate. It is the number of calories your body would burn for you if you didn't move a muscle all day. If you didn't move at all. If you laid in bed all day. Okay? It's the minimum number of calories your body needs to sustain your brain functioning, your heart beating, your organs functioning, your hair growing. Okay? It represents 2/3 of the calories that you're going to burn that day. 65 to 75%. Okay? And it also, for men, it's anywhere between 1,700 and 2,200 calories a day. So most of you guys, like if you sat all day, you would burn anywhere between 1,700 and 2,200 calories for that day, just by being a person, being a male. Women, we get less. Ours are much less. It's 1,200 to 1,700 calories a day. So who's familiar with The Biggest Loser? Do you remember that show? Okay. I want to talk about that resting metabolic rate because it can either work for us or against us. And there was a study that came out last year. And it came out actually on Halloween. And what they did was they looked at the resting metabolic rate of the people who participated in that show. And of course, probably 85% of those people have gained their weight back, most of it. Okay? There are some that have kept it off. What they did that contraption, they put the thing on their face and measured their oxygen and their carbon dioxide, and they measured what their resting metabolic rates were when they started the show. And then they did it again as they lost the weight through the course of the show, and then they continued to do it after they left the show. Okay? So what they found was that on average, their resting metabolic rate dropped 500 calories a day. So if you started, like as a female, if we started at 1,200 calories a day, at the end of that period, our resting metabolic rate was down to 700 calories a day. They don't know why, but with large amounts of weight loss, the resting metabolic rate tanks. And I can tell you this, when working with the bariatrics and weight loss surgery patients, I see it all the time. One of the ways you see it is that they're cold all the time. Like their metabolism it's almost like that starvation mode that they've been in just slows everything down. And the interesting thing was the people who regained their weight, once they regained their weight, you would think it would go back up, and it didn't. It actually stayed at that lower level. So they got heavier, which is why the pounds went on faster and faster as they regained the weight, because their engine was running. Think of it as your resting metabolic rate is the idle of your engine, right? It's the car engine rate. So it went from idling fast to idling really slow. So it's not using as many calories. Does that make sense, you guys? So the message from that study was dietary changes will help start weight loss. It'll initiate it. You got to change how you approach your nutrition to start weight loss. But a strong commitment to physical activity is what keeps it off long term. Does that make sense? So the way you take weight off and keep it off is you have to combine the exercise and the nutrition. Okay? So I know that's a little tangent, but I think it's important that you guys understand that. That resting metabolic rate is really important. We want that to be elevated. Okay? The other part of the resting metabolic rate you need to understand is what determines how well you idle, basically, some things that are not in your control, your gender, your age, your general body temperature, and some genetics. Okay? Alright, so the other component of physical activity, metabolism. So we just talked about the resting metabolic rate. Now we're going to talk about this. Don't worry about this. We'll talk about the exercise. So movement. So remember I said your resting metabolic rate is if you didn't move a muscle all day. But we do move, right? We're human, we're alive. So we add to those calories that we burn every day. Okay? And so how active we are how active we are determines how many calories we're going to burn through that day, which is kind of common sense, right? So we separate out movement, taking steps, being on your feet and taking steps, from intentional exertion or exercise. Okay? So getting out of breath, intentionally doing some exercise is separate from taking steps. Okay? So we're going to break that out. When I say taking steps, we call it NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. We're not intentionally exercising, we're just on our feet getting from point A to point B. Movement counts and it affects your metabolism, which is what we're going to talk about. Okay? So, what are the two biggest metabolism destroyers? I've been hinting around to it.
Starch and sugar.
They contribute. I like that. That's good. that is a contributing factor, but they're not the two biggest. But that's a good one. You know what I just thought of? We still don't have the internet, do we?
Yeah.
Rats. I have a great YouTube video.
Exercise and nutrition.
Huh? Here we go. Number one. Our sedentary lifestyles. What does that mean?
Not enough exercise.
It's not enough movement. We'll keep exercise separate, but working out, that's called conditioning, and we're getting to that. So yes. Huh? Yes, there you go. Exactly. So we have evolved. Think about how your parents and grandparents lived, right? We had to get up and change the channel. We're going to go through some of that. But I particularly like the top picture here because oh wait, let me go back. No, next slide. I'll talk about it next time. But this is a startling statistic. Back in the 50s and 60s, at least 50% of the jobs required that we be on our feet, taking steps. There was some manual labor involved with bringing home the paycheck, okay? But unfortunately today, over 80% of jobs are sedentary. And I started in banking in the 1980s, and I want to point this out if you guys are familiar with computers and office settings, but here we are in the 70s and 80s, right? Computer monitors were really big, and our waistlines were small, right? And here we go in the 90s, the monitors are getting smaller, the waistlines are getting bigger, and you can see the 2000s right here we are now with the laptops. That's kind of a telling, but that's more and more professions require people to be sitting in front of a computer all day long processing information, right? And they're deadline driven, and so people tend to just sit and not break up their sitting time. Think about how much time we spend in our motor vehicles. We spend a lot of time. Drive-thrus, right? You know, I have clients who are busy, they call them stay-at-home moms, they're stay-in-the-car moms, doing all the dropping the kids off through the drive-thru. They're not getting out of the car, the kids are getting out of the car. They're eating in the car. Think about housework, right? So a lot of people now hire out that process. My brother has 3 of those on his first floor alone. I was like jumping over the damn thing. I was like, what are you doing? I was like, this is ridiculous. But you know, our parents and grandparents used to have to do a lot of movement and exertion just to keep the house clean. They burned a lot of calories. Think about how our kids play. How did we play? Aren't we over here? Wasn't this us? My mom kicked us out. We weren't allowed to come in until it was lunchtime, and then we weren't allowed to come in until it was dinner, and then we weren't allowed to come in until it was bath time in bed. We played outside. And it's funny because my daughter's 17. When she was little, like I didn't want her to be outside without me overseeing it somehow, and it was always had to be something structured. So, see, this is where the trend is, right? Our sedentary lifestyles. Think about the phone. How many of you guys had more than 2 phones in your house when you were young? No, right? Kitchen wall, parents' bedroom maybe, right? You had to get up and answer it, right? And you may not have been able to sit down while you talked on it. I don't know why that's buzzing. Think about how we define leisure now, okay? So, I don't know about you, but I have fond memories of my parents and grandparents would go out and do something physical. They would go bowling, they would dance. They didn't just go out to eat. How do we define our fun weekend leisure time now? Right? We rush to go out to eat. We sit and eat. We sit and go to the movies while we eat. It's the picture of our society, how sedentary we are becoming is getting scary. You can see where it's going, right? And how we have fun with our families. I'm sorry, I just had to throw that thing up there. Like that was just an excuse to throw that up there. So researchers got together and they actually call this sitting disease. The scientist that started this, his name is Dr. James Levine, and he put volunteers in a laboratory in electronic underwear. And he was able to measure the calories that they were burning and their metabolism processes throughout the day, when they were sitting, when they were up and moving. And what he found is when we sit, our metabolisms just turn off. Two things happen. We're only burning a calorie a minute when we sit. And we rely on enzymes to process the calories of our food. There are enzymes that process the fats and sugars, and when we sit, they shut off. When we stand and move, they turn on. Okay? They're connecting now diabetes and high blood pressure, arthritis, all the kind of the diseases that are plaguing our culture now, not so much with weight as it is with sedentary lifestyle. Because you can be thin and be very sick inside from being too sedentary. You can have all this stuff happening. Okay? You can have heart disease and things like that. I had a really good video to show you, and I can't show you because we don't have the internet access. It's very scary to watch. It's about how much, like, our cancer rates increased by 40% from being too sedentary. We're 60% more likely to die from heart disease if we spend 3 hours or more a day sitting. Like, meaning not breaking up the sitting time, okay? We want to break up sitting time, bottom line. And you can see with the metabolism, we would, if we were on our feet more throughout the day, we could burn an extra 1,500 to 2,400 more calories a day, which is huge. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? I'll email you guys the link to that video so you can watch it, okay? Unless, well, maybe it'll show on here. Hold on. Let me see. Nope. Never mind. So this is how sitting destroys the metabolism. Again, the electrical activity, your muscles shut off, your calorie burning drops to 1%, enzymes that break down fat drop 90%, your good cholesterol tanks, diabetes goes up. Okay? So his math, his science showed if we have a sit-down desk job where we're sitting most of the day, do you remember that resting metabolic rate, right? So for men, 1,700 to 2,200 calories a day, women 1,200 to 1,700, right? So if you sat at a desk all day, let's say I'm a male whose resting metabolic rate is 1,700 calories a day. I'm only going to burn about 2,000 calories that day. And do you guys know how easy it is to eat 2,000 calories in today's culture? This is why we gain weight. So if we have work where we're standing and moving around more, you can see there's a huge difference in that. You double the amount of calories that you're burning. Okay? You're doubling your metabolism. All right. So now we're going to talk about exercise. We're to exercise. So the idea is that because we sit a lot, and because we aren't, let's say, tilling fields and churning butter and all those other things that we had to do 100 years ago to survive, our muscles are becoming deconditioned, and our cardiovascular system is deconditioning rapidly, okay? And so it affects your resting metabolism, okay? Deconditioning is basically the atrophy of those systems caused by things like aging, sedentary lifestyle, and illness. There are two systems in our body that it affects. The cardiovascular system, how efficiently you pump blood and nutrients through your system and exchange the oxygen gases through your system. And your musculoskeletal system, the muscles that hold up your frame and help give you mobility, right? So cardiovascular deconditioning. So what happens is we have decreased blood flow to all our tissues over time, okay? And what are some of the signs of decreased blood flow to our tissues as we get older? Can you guys think of any? What about swelling in our feet, in our ankles? That's just our venous return is not working optimally. That's one of the signs, okay? So the heart muscle gets weaker. In fact, there were studies that came out just recently on that, about how significantly the heart muscle, after we turn about 40, starts to weaken over time. I mean, the good news is it doesn't have to be this way, but I'm just telling you. Okay, so your blood flow brings your immune system to your tissues and nutrition to your tissues. So when we have less blood flow to those tissues, we're getting less nutrition to our tissues, and our immune system can take a hit and make us more prone to disease, okay? Musculoskeletal conditioning. Let's talk about that real quick. So we rely on our muscles to hold our body upright, to give us mobility, to help us move. And they also cushion our joint and give us balance, our joints and give us balance. They prevent things like arthritis. So when our muscles start to decondition from not using them, we are more prone to things like arthritis. And life gets difficult, it gets harder to move upstairs and things like that. Does that make sense? Okay? And again, with both of these deconditioning, we have fewer mitochondria. And our metabolism slows. So here we go. So this is the picture of a muscle cell that has a lot of mitochondria. This is a muscle cell that's been used a lot. The mitochondria is the red, right? So the muscle looks red, it's oxygenated, it's good. It's a good nourished muscle cell. And then this is an extreme example of a deconditioned muscle cell over time, where the muscle is not being used, so it's just kind of shutting down, the mitochondria is not working. And then when that happens, guess what? The metabolism goes with it. Okay? Make sense? So deconditioning reduces the number of muscle cells, and it also reduces the concentration and the quality of the mitochondria in the muscle cells that you have. So it's like the car engine is idling slower. Okay? So just as a summary, a sedentary lifestyle leads to impaired mitochondrial function, which leads to a very slow metabolism. So this is what a deconditioned, let me give you, here's a CAT scan. This is an individual's leg muscle, the quadriceps, right here. The quadriceps are one of your most important muscle groups. They're the reason you have mobility, they're the reason you walk, they're the reason you move upstairs, okay? They're your primary mobility movers. And as we age, we actually lose between a ½ pound and a pound of muscle in our bodies per year after we turn 30, if we're not using them, okay? And if we're not challenging them. So this is a CAT scan of a conditioned muscle. This is somebody who's 33 years old, but the funny thing is that the 77-year-old can have this muscle, because it doesn't matter how old you are, you can actually make a muscle in better shape and condition it better and give you much better quality of life regardless of what age you are, okay? If you do exercise, if you apply some conditioning to it, if you do an exercise program. So you can take, no matter what your age, you can take a muscle that's like this, and on this picture, this is all body fat here. You can kind of see it looks like a marbled steak, right? Because you've got body fat infiltrated. This muscle is not very well conditioned. You can take a muscle from this and make it this over time, okay? And again, no matter what age you are. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Okay, we just talked about that. We can go past it. All right. Remember in the beginning when I showed you the box? So, deconditioning, sedentary lifestyle. Here's resting metabolism that is down and decreased because we are having not moving enough and we're sitting at our desk all day. And there's no exercise versus, and this is a metabolism that burns 1,500 calories a day versus a robust metabolism that has a higher resting metabolism. And we burn a lot of calories because we are moving a lot, we're not sitting a lot, and we're going to the gym 3 times a week. Okay, see the difference there? From 1,500 to maybe 3,000 calories a day. Does that make sense? Everybody's just looking at me. Okay, so had I known there would be so many men in the room, I would have put here's Fred. But most of my audiences are women, so here we go. Here's Judy, okay? So this is Judy on the left. This is Judy at 30 years old. And Judy's loving life, okay? So let me go through the numbers here real quick. She has a basal metabolic rate, or a resting metabolic rate of 1,500 calories a day. And that's because she's active and she's 30 years old, okay? Her total calorie burn every day, because she's got a lot of that meat, and she works out, is 2,500. So she burns an extra 1,000 calories a day just because she's working out and she's moving around. She's taking 12,000 steps a day, as an example, okay? She eats 2,500 calories a day, which is not bad, right? That's good. She's not starving herself, right? So she gets on the scale every morning, and she is exactly 120 pounds, and life is good. She's not gaining or losing weight. She also has not met her husband, and she hasn't had her kids yet, okay? So, and we can't stand her because she's like a size 2. So, but this is her at 30 years old. Every day she gets on the scale, And she's getting to the gym several times a week. She's on her feet all day. She's got leisure time. She plays tennis with her friends. But then she meets her husband. She has kids. She has to take a second job. She's quit her gym membership. She's eating a lot of fast food in the car, getting the kids from here to there. And here is Judy 20 years later. Okay?
I thought that was her husband.
There you go. So she's wondering what the hell happened. So her idle rate, her resting metabolism, used to be 1,500, but she's lost muscle over time. So her resting metabolism is down to 1,200 because she's lost muscle. She's not working out anymore. Her weight and muscle, by the way, was 96 pounds, and now it's 86 pounds. She lost a ½ pound of muscle every year over the 20 years. Okay? So her total burn rate, because she's sitting most of the day, right? She used to burn 2,500. She's now only burning 1,500 calories a day. See the huge difference, right? She's burning 1,000 calories less per day at 50 than she was at 30. Okay? So, but see, here's the problem. She's still eating 2,500 calories a day because old habits die hard. Right? So she can't seem to get her calorie intake down to 50, which is hard. 1,500 calories a day is not much food. Okay? So she's having trouble getting her calories down, so she's eating 1,000 calories every day more than what she's burning. So she's gaining weight. Make sense? This is how this happens. This is how the metabolism slows as we get older. Okay? It's a combination of factors. So 1 pound of body fat is equal to about 3,500 calories. Okay? So if Judy continues to eat 1,000 calories more than what she's burning every day, how long will it be before she gains a pound? The answer's right there. But do you see where I'm going? So when you consume 3,500 extra calories more than what your metabolism or your mitochondria burn, then you're going to gain weight. In 3.5 days, you're going to gain a pound. Make sense? This is how weight gain can happen so quickly, right? So it would take her only 5 months to gain 40 pounds. This is how people can gain 100 pounds in a year. Crazy, huh? So here's how you keep a robust metabolism. You've got to have an active lifestyle. You can't be sitting all day. The general rule of thumb is to break up sitting time every 30 minutes. Get up and take a few steps. That turns the metabolism on. Even if you did, like I have clients who are like, I can't leave the desk. Okay, just stand up. Stand up and do this for a couple seconds. That by itself turns the metabolism back on. It's not going to make huge strides to the metabolism, but it's going to do something, okay? Because you're burning like 100 times more calories when you're standing than you are when you're sitting, okay? Add to it conditioning. What is conditioning? Strength training, cardiovascular exercise. We'll go through that in a second. You get improved mitochondrial function, because remember, your metabolism is in your mitochondria, okay? And therefore, you have a more robust metabolism. Does that make sense? Any questions on that, you guys? So, you want to reverse the sitting cycle, like I just said, okay? You want to look for opportunities to take steps and to stand up. Everybody stand up right now. You've been sitting too long. There you go. Reset your metabolism. Good. And the other thing you guys need to know is that when you sit, you actually are significantly increasing your risk for herniated disc in your back. It's the #1 reason we have herniated disc. Your spine, homeostasis for your back is to have this little curve in your back. Okay? The problem is when you sit, that curve reverses and it goes out like this. And when it goes out like this, you have 40% more pressure in your lower lumbar vertebrae. And that's the biggest contributing factor to herniating your discs, combined with the fact that the back muscles are weakening over time. So if you want a strong back, you've got to stand up and you've got to move. When you move and you stand up, you've actually engaged all of your core muscles, and they're helping to strengthen the back. Does that make sense? It may be more comfortable to sit when you have a bad back, but you've got to work in standing movement, okay? All right. So, and I'm going to teach you a real quick exercise you can do, and you don't have to do anything other than stand here and listen. So, there's a new science now that's talking about the health of our feet. And what's going on our feet is dictating how healthy our backs and our hips and our knees are. And one of the most important movements you can do, every day, a couple times a day, is to press your big toe into the floor. Press your big toe firmly into the floor. You engage the muscles of the foot, which turns on a strengthening and stiffening response through what they call the deep frontal fascial line through the body up to your brain. And it actually helps your body absorb impact when you move. And it strengthens your back and your knees over time. So you just push it's called short foot. The movement is called short foot, and it helps strengthen your feet. Okay? So if you want to think about it, you stand up, press your big toes down. I design exercise sequences that are all barefoot with the foot moving and all this kind of stuff, and I take away pain for my clients. So it's really important. So that's just foundation. Start pushing your big toe down. Okay? All right. Go ahead and sit. We want to do cardiovascular exercise, and we want to do strength training. We want growth of the mitochondria. You don't have to do a lot of this. I know it's uncomfortable. We don't like to be out of breath, right? Who enjoys it? But when you embrace it intentionally a few days a week, you actually reap huge benefits, okay? Look at these are some of the benefits. You get a stronger, more efficient heart and cardiovascular system. Your blood pressure is better controlled. Your cholesterol is better controlled. Your diabetes is better controlled. Your muscles pull out extra blood sugar like a sponge. So your blood sugar levels come down a lot when you start using your muscles, okay? You reduce pain from arthritis because blood flow. Again, blood flow. When you do exercise, you're pumping greater volumes of blood to all your tissues. And the term is called microcirculation. So it's infusing blood flow into your joints and your knees including. And it actually is very healing. It's bringing nutrition. So it's like taking an oil can to a rusty joint, okay? It can help. It's actually been shown to be as good for fighting depression as an antidepressant. 3 sessions of exercise where you get slightly out of breath a week, okay, is just as good as an antidepressant. It's really important. You get a more efficient heart, you get more oxygen-rich blood to all your system, which is what we just talked about, and a more robust circulatory system. Okay, getting more nutrition to all of our systems. And then, here's the benefits of strength training. Your joints cushion, your muscles cushion your joints, okay? So the muscles of the legs, these are your shock absorbers, your quadriceps. Remember I said they're the reason you move and get up and move upstairs? They're also your shock absorbers for your knees. So when you have strong quads, your knees aren't going to take a hit, okay? When you have strong glute muscles, your back is going to be stronger, okay? So it's really important you do strength training as well. It's not just about your metabolism. All right, let's summarize. Let's go back to Judy real fast, and then we'll be done. So here's Judy. Sorry, I guess the picture went off. So here's the picture of a better outcome after when Judy's 50. Okay, so look, I made her hair gray. So remember, you thought it was her husband on the scale?
She divorced her other.
Yeah, right. Stop. No, she just built in activity and she got herself to the gym. She stopped making excuses. Her kids are off to college and she's happy. She's got a great, like, what do they call it, empty nest situation at home. So she kept up with her exercise and now she's doing really well. So look, her basal metabolic rate only dropped about 100 calories, right? Her total daily energy expenditure is down a little bit, but she adjusted her diet. So she's in harmony with her metabolism, okay? She's active, she's up a couple pounds, but not much, right? And life is good. That's the difference, okay? That's why this is important. You don't want to think about it just in terms of the here and the now. What the choices you make now dictate where you're going to be 10 and 15 years from now and 20 years from now, okay? Stop! I did not hear that. And anyhow, in conclusion, here we go. So, any questions, you guys?